With the world now more urban than ever, the wild places and those that dwell there find themselves few in number. Where once were woods, rivers, and fields, now exists a life of paddocks, pens, and exhibits, a window to the world for ourselves, but still, a life in captivity. In answer to this new kind of wildlife, these men and women have dedicated themselves to the care and upkeep of their charges. Some of them are exotic, others rural, even domestic, but each in need of someone else. Going hand in hand with these animals is a special kind of person, the keepers. Where some might have expected farmlands lies the Valley of the King's Animal Sanctuary, where Andy Carlson has volunteered his time not in hours, but rather years.
I accidentally, 20 years ago, stumbled across Valley of the Kings. I say that because nothing in life is accidental. So there's a huge pet show conference every year at Arlington Racetrack, mainly dog rescues, animal supply companies, and the like. They had a booth there. So I started talking with one of the volunteers, saw some clips of the animals, and then she knew she had me. So she started talking more and more. So initially, I decided, you know what? That's a pretty cool thing. I've always been intrigued by big cats. So when I started sponsoring one of the leopards, sending in $100. And then before you knew it, I was coming up once a month and then twice a month to help out with construction projects. And then for a stretch of time, that was all I did on the weekends for about 3 years. And then about 15, 16 years ago, there was the need for somebody to step in and really want to take the initiative as far as giving tours. So I'm like, yeah, I'm your guy. And for myself, whenever I do anything, I want to understand it entirely. So it gave me the opportunity to really find out about with the big cats, both in captivity and the wild. So fast forward 20 years, I'm still doing it, and I love it. It's my passion. It's an honor for me to be their voice and to go out and tell the story.
It's a sensibility that's advantaged not only Carlson himself, but also the sanctuary as a whole. With places like Valley of the Kings of Sharon, Wisconsin, forced to take in rescued animals from all over the country, extremity demands necessity.
At our peak, we can actually have 50 big cats. Right now we've lost some to old age, so we're down to probably 19, maybe 20 big cats. Some have come from private owners, some are surplus zoo animals. You know, people think that it's not working out for me having that particular lion cub or the tiger cub. I'm just gonna drop it off at the local zoo. And zoos are not set up to be a refuge, you know, for big cats. They've come from that, from private ownerships, roadside zoos. It's a bucket list wanting to get your picture taken with a little tiger cub. I get that, but they don't realize the dreadful life that that tiger cub's gonna be living once they can no longer be used as a photo prop. Hey, Oksana. How is the beautiful, the lovely Oksana doing? Well, Oksana, come here. Oksana, come here. Hi, how you doing? Did you have a good week?
Besides the novelty of being a snow tiger, anything more sensational would be the possibility of a hybrid. Tigons, ligers, and tyliges too.
Can I see your tummy? You're gonna show me your belly? What do you think, huh? Can I see your tummy? In animal senses, they know when they've arrived here that they've landed at a very good spot. And having done this for 20 years, VO2K will bring the animals back, just not physically, but mentally, emotionally, psychologically, I would argue spiritually. With these guys here, they could sense that they've landed in a good spot. And that's very much, you know, the same case with the big cats when they arrive as well, that they know this is home. And they were saying how, as they were getting ready to pull off the property with the 2 black bears, that the 4 grizzly bears, all 4 went to their enclosure looking at them like, please take us, you know, please take us. It's an interesting phenomenon that happens when an animal comes here. They've all had at least 2 or 3 other trips they've been on previously. They're greeted by a welcoming roar, letting them know, hey, welcome home. Now, Lena here, not so much. Open up the crate, she wouldn't get out. It took her 2 weeks to get up enough courage to actually get out of the rolling crate. When she did, we saw her looking up into the sky because she'd never seen daylight before. The guy that had them, he was a hoarder. He had a dozen big cats and a poor elephant that had nowhere to move. All the poor elephant could do was just basically rotate back and forth on their feet. So she's now the energetic, the beautiful tiger that she's always been. So that's what they need to hear in that moment when they arrive here. And they can also sense our intention, the human's intention, that they have jealousy issues with Mishka, or not Mishka, but with Milo. So I think he was kind of teasing them. The best description I could give would be, I am refreshingly tired. When I have been involved with the work project, putting up a new lion pen or a tiger pen, that's brutal work because we need to go ahead and get the poles dug, or holes, 5 feet into the ground. Part of the framework for the big cat's pen is going to be a 15-foot telephone pole, so it's really hard manual, work. But for myself, it's work that I look forward to because I know that the end result from doing it is that a pen's being completed. There's been some jobs I've had over the years where you're kind of looking at your watch, what time is it? But time here just seems to sprint, when you're here working on a project. You're very passionate, it's a sense of teamwork. At the end of getting the end goal accomplished, we know that new animals have been saved. So there's never been a time that I said, well, gosh, I don't know if I can do this anymore. If anything, I want to do more because I know that the effort I'm putting forth is so meaningful, and I'm refreshingly tired. So this is another pen that we could literally, tomorrow, put in. She would need to get relocated to another pen here, but we can literally have 4 big cats in this particular pen. The one thing too that happens here is that you bond, with a lot of the animals. So I've had longer relationships with the animals here than I've had with a lot of people. So, you get to know them very, very well, their personality, and it's kind of a reciprocal energy going back and forth. One of the big cats that we have here, Socrates, passed away. There was one winter about 4 or 5 years ago. It must have been 20 below freezing that particular day. For me, it's not a big deal. I just put in extra layers and I go ahead and make my way out to the different pens, and I was, getting for him the water. And then Socrates kind of looks out at me from his house. He saw me walking, almost have to say, what are you doing here? It's pretty bad weather. So I'm walking to the water bucket. I start pouring the water into his water bucket. He walks over to me, sits down, looks me straight in the face and starts to chuff. Which he knew, he understood, and he was very thankful.
With so few places like Valley of the Kings, Carlson has found his ideal niche, acting as the master of ceremony for the annual motorcycle tours.
When the group's coming in, getting them over to the staging area, and then breaking the tours down from there. The group today, we're not yet sure how many bikes are going to be there. Last weekend we had probably 250 people here for a single event. I probably have given 4,200 hours to 4,300 hours worth of tours, talks, and presentations. So for me, I'm like, tell me more. Do you want more? One story would be, we had a tiger named Brutus. I would talk to him, hey Brutus, how you doing, Barney? He would kind of look at me like, okay, maybe you're not quite so bad. But it took weeks, and after weeks and months of just him seeing me, getting a read of my personality. And that's a key thing I would add too, which is that from where these animals were before they came here, they should literally want to have nothing to do with mankind again. So with Brutus, it got to the point of where, you know, he would begin to talk with me. He was very talkative. One day, I was giving a tour, and I got to the point of where I felt pretty good with him. I'm like, Brutus, can you show me your tummy? Can I see your belly? He went to the pen, put his forehead down, rah, 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 took a couple steps back, leaned back, and showed me his belly.
In the case of Valley of the Kings and its residents, their stay will be forever permanent. But for the next visitor and the next big cat, people like Carlson may be the one chance for things to be done differently and to be done right. Between the races, recreation, and being beasts of burden, a small herd of farm ponies has found their new life conducive. Typical of most herds is a lead mare whom presides over every individual. But apart from the mare herself, the one that has the final word is Andrea View. Nearly every horse in the pasture tips their head to her. A physical therapist by trade, her farm duties weren't ones she necessarily applied for, but they've gone on for quite some time now.
So we were boarding in Ringwood. We had a slaughter truck stop, and Booger was on board. And the slaughter truck driver said that he wanted to unload them, and he didn't think it was fair that these horses were going to slaughter. So we bought him, and he wanted $100 a head for each horse that was on his trailer. So we only got Booger, but he came off the trailer with one front shoe on backwards, and it was his front left foot. And my grandma said that she wanted to keep him because she felt bad for him. And we already had 2 horses boarded there, so that he was our third. And shortly after we rescued him, my grandma was diagnosed with Alzheimer's and dementia. And it was a pretty quick downhill battle with her. And it was too hard to run between work and school and taking care of her and going to the barn to make sure that the horses were okay. So she decided she wanted to buy a farm, and we started this place. It just kind of snowballed. So it started with Booger, and second it was Jay, and then it was Micah and Fudge. Pretty soon we had all 13 that we have here. And then when she died, she left us the farm to make sure that we could keep moving forward with rescuing animals. And right now we're at capacity, but the 2, Dooley and Honey, will be trained, and they will have availability to go to a new home so that we can rescue 2 more. Sometimes it's 60-40, sometimes it's 80-20. Sometimes it's 50-50. Always something needs to be fixed. We always have to get grain. There's always something missing. Something's broken. One of the horses gets sick, and then it's a giant monstrosity vet bill on top of it. And there's always a day where nothing goes wrong, and then for every day that's right, there's 5 where you're not getting your way at all. I'll be honest, I skip showers sometimes because I'm short on time. And I'll work, depends on the hours. Some days it's from 7 to 7, some days it's from 2 to 7. And then when I come home, you walk around and make sure everybody's feet are okay and nobody's been cut. It's the same morning routine, only I get to lollygag a little bit. I always like evening shift here better than morning shift because then I get to take my time. Come here, my big teddy bear. That's my boy.
Some things take a little more attention. Some come disciplined, while others remain strong-willed as ever.
There's a lot that actually goes into the training. A lot of people think, oh, you get a horse and it's awesome and you just get on it and you ride it. The fact about it is that you need to understand that horse and understand your boundaries with that animal, and then establish boundaries for yourself with it. Once you've established those boundaries and they understand that you're not a threat, then you can start to go into training. Because these animals have been so abused. We don't know where they come from. We don't know their history. We don't know how healthy they are. It's a whole process of vetting them out and getting to know them. Raspberry is headstrong and she's extremely stubborn, and she can be violent at times, explosively violent, and she will hurt somebody if they don't have the right mentality with her.
However, if she does run at you, she will take you out.
Now training, that's a whole another animal. I just do all of this, I just do all of the home body work. Meg is her own entity with me. I met Meg through my friend Morgan, they're currently dating. And essentially, I gave Meg full control of the training. She knows better than I would what the horse would need and how long they need it for. If they need a little less power, a little more power, because some horses will just do as you ask. They're very kind, they're very sweet. They haven't had this upbringing where they've just been tossed around from trailer to trailer and from pen to pen. Other horses will turn on you and be ballistic for no reason at all. So like Raspberry isn't, she's a case because she's violent. She couldn't just go to any trainer, because some trainers do natural horsemanship, where another trainer might do something like Pirelli, which is a ground-based reward system that teaches the horse. And then there's other trainers that just cowboy, where they just get on and they ride the buck out and then they move on from that. Most of these horses are older and they've been broke, so they were either ridden into the ground, they jumped their whole life, or they pulled a wagon. These younger horses, they have a chance. But the problem is if they're not trained and they don't know enough, they're gonna end back up in that slaughter pen. My goal with training them is to ensure that they have a ground base that everybody can understand, and that means that their chances are higher of getting a better home where they're gonna go and they're gonna work, they're gonna have a purpose. These older horses, they've done their work and they've had their piece in life, but they need to have what we like to call baseline training, which is where they know their stop, left, right, back up, and they're used to a rider on their back. Some people look for green broke horses, which is where they're not fully trained, and you can train them in other aspects of riding, so English or Western or barrels. And some people just want a dead broke horse that goes left, right, stops, and backs up.
The number of animals has never been restricted to horses, with many other breeds enjoying their stay as well.
Well, we started with 5 chickens, and when we did start, we didn't mean to rescue chickens. What happened with the chickens is there's a local store that sells chicks every Easter, and they're either dyed, like purple or green or pink. You know, kids whine, they're like, oh, I want this chick, it's so cute, I have to have it. A lot of people don't realize how much work goes into chickens. I mean, they're meaty, but they're fragile. A single draft could kill a chick. But these people buy them anyway, and their kid has them for like 3 weeks, and they get bored. And then by 16, they're already molting, if they haven't molted already. And then they stink, and they poop every 5 minutes. And this chicken that's losing its feathers and is half bald, and they look terrible, and they dump them off. Oh, you are filthy. Oh dear. Don't bite.
Being less ideal for eating, many potbellies have found a new life as a family pet. But not this family's pet. originally someone else's.
Come here. Gilbert was somebody's buy, and they decided that they didn't want him anymore at 2 weeks old. It was too much work. He ate too much. He was too expensive. Not only that, he was a little jerk. He was a biter. He was terrible. You wouldn't know he was so friendly because he would come up to you and he'd act like he wanted your attention, and he'd stick his cute little piggy nose on your leg and he'd try to take your finger off. He's pretty good. When they're young and you're good with them, and they learn very quickly. They have a high intelligence. He can sit, he can beg, he can fetch. He doesn't always do what you ask him to do because he is very stubborn, but he has not once tried to bite at me.
Go home. Come on.
Gilly! Gilly! Oh, really? We have the ugly stick because he likes to take his teeth and run it along your leg, and they're long and it's dangerous. So we have the stick to make sure that he catches the stick and not my leg again, because I don't want to go through another round of tetanus shots. It was 4, by the way. Don't you challenge me. Gilly, come on. Oh my goodness. He's got an attitude. Gilly, I'm gonna get the ugly stick. Okay. A regular boar would go out and they'd find shrubbery to rub their tusks on, or rocks even. They chew on rocks to help break their teeth down. He doesn't have that option here, you know, and he wouldn't know to do that anyway because he's just so sheltered. I know, come on. Come on. No handsome boy. The one thing I wish people would take away from places like this is that these animals, they know who you are. They get used to you. They fall in love with you just the way you fall in love with them. So they're not a piece of machinery that you can discard like some screwdriver. I want them to see that these animals are benefiting from finishing out their lives in whole. I mean, half of these horses can't be ridden because they're sick or they're injured. They were jumped into the ground and they wasted their whole life working for people that didn't care. And I want people to see that these animals still matter. That just because you got rid of it because it was too old, or the horse was sick, or you know, you don't want it anymore. It's a burden. Doesn't mean that they stop feeling the way that they feel about you. They feel just as much about this place as they do for the person that they worked for their entire life, and then they're discarded, and it's sad. They don't end because you got rid of them.
While not a sanctuary, farm, or zoo, even the small-town animal shelter finds itself no different, and Nick DeMaio can call himself a keeper too.
I do freelance videography, so with not always having a video job, I had openings and I didn't want to just sit at home and do nothing. Always wanted a dog, so I figured why not learn something so maybe down the road I can make a better informed decision about which dog to get.
His time spent with strays has taught him plenty already.
I don't want a puppy. I figured out about 3 weeks into the job I did not want a puppy, because taking care of about 15 to 20 puppies every morning, I mean, that gets really annoying. I think when it does come time for a dog, I'll probably be in the market for an older dog. We have what we call lead staffs. There's 4 of us. We usually have a staff of 8 people, so the staff is divided in half. When I started, there were 4. That's a lot of the trouble of keeping staff here, because a lot of people think, again, I was one of them. I thought because the shelter opened at 12, that's when I needed to be here. I didn't take into account that somebody has to clean the dogs and take care of the dogs at 8 o'clock in the morning. You don't know what you're gonna walk into when you get here. So sometimes I've come in and a dog has been loose or somebody's changed their minds. You get highs and lows with this job. So we usually start our day about 8 o'clock. We come in, we give the dogs their elimination walk. After the elimination walk, we feed them, and then we start cleaning the kennels, anything general cleaning that we can get done. And then around 10 o'clock in the morning, we start with the second walk, and the second walk for the dogs is usually a lot longer. We try to give them 10 minutes, and then after the second walk, we usually go to lunch for about half an hour, and then we open to the public at 12. And from 12 to 4, we're showing animals, cleaning when we're not showing, and then at 2:45 we begin with our third walks up until about 4:30 when we as the staff leave, and then about 8 o'clock we have volunteers come in and do a night walk for the dogs. And then with the cats, that's usually all volunteer based. They show up at 8, they feed the cats, and then they start cleaning the cat rooms. And then the cat volunteers usually leave around 10:30, 11 o'clock. And then we do have some cat volunteers that come in when we're open and play with the cat, do general upkeep to make the rooms not as messy.
Adoption is always the objective, but hardly an easy one. DeMaio has had to bear that in mind depending on the personality and temperament of the dog in question.
In the 2 years I've been here, I haven't really come across a dangerous animal. There was one animal, he came off the transport and he couldn't be handled right away, so they didn't take him. And then we do temperament tests with people who relinquish their animals to us. So we're testing that animal's temperament to make sure that we can handle it. And if we can't handle it in that temperament test, we actually don't take the animal in. There's green, blue, and staff walks only. Green dogs are dogs that anybody can handle, any of the volunteers can walk. Blue dogs, they tend to pull. They may give you a hard time leashing up when you go into the kennel. And then the next step would be staff walks only. We don't want a volunteer getting bit. We do use a lot of precaution if we're showing that animal. Whether that animal doesn't like being in a confined space, we'll bring the dog outside to show it. We did have a retriever who, she wasn't aggressive. She just would sniff everybody in the room and then just go sit by the door. Didn't acknowledge anybody else in the room. She just stayed at that door, so we figured out that she wanted to be outside, so we started showing her outside, and she was a lot more active outside, so that actually ended up helping her get adopted. With stigmas, they're just the shelter. They think because the dog is here, there's something wrong with it, and that's not the case at all. There are just so many animals out there that need a home, and we do our best to try and give that animal a home. The more animals we can save, the better. With naming, we try to stay pretty uncontroversial. We'll do TV shows, movies, characters, anything we can think of that'll actually help the dog get adopted. A majority of the time that's with puppies and kittens. The older animals, they come with names. So in one instance, we did have to change the dog's name because it was taken away from somebody, and they made it known that they were gonna try and get the dog back. So when we got the dog, we actually ended up changing its name so they couldn't find it.
No matter how many dogs or cats find themselves adopted, the most difficult animal to find a home for seems to be the pit bull, but through no fault of its own.
Mike Vick didn't really help the situation. In this area, we really don't pull that many. People can mold a puppy, but they have it in their head that if it's an adult pit, that it's stuck in its ways and it's not gonna change. So it just is what it is. You relish in the moment when somebody comes in and says, hey, do you have any adult pits? And then you kind of smile and you're like, yes, this dog finally has a chance.
The average rescue varies, with most numbering 2 per month every 2 weeks. But no less impressive has been the shelter's success in cooperation with Korea.
The International Humane Society has started breaking up dog meat farms over in South Korea, and they're looking for people to foster or take in these dogs. So once we were able to place all 4 into homes, we waited probably another 3 months, and then we were told, hey, we need we broke up another farm, would you guys be willing to take some more dogs? And this time, the second time, we actually took 2 mastiffs just because of how well our experience was with the first mastiff. If you are interested in a dog, we recommend that you come meet the dog. So when you show up, we'll walk you through the kennel. If you see a dog you like, we'll put you in a meet and greet room. There's an interview. After that, we determine if you have a dog at home. We'll let you know that you have to bring your dog in to meet the prospective dog, because we don't want to put a dog in a home where the dogs just don't get along, because then that good chance that one of those dogs is coming back. I mean, you can't foresee these things. They do happen. There's a whole bunch of different reasons. Sometimes we'll cat test a dog, and then we come to find out that just because we cat tested the dog for about 2 to 5 minutes in a cat room doesn't mean that it doesn't like cats. That's my #1 reason why I haven't adopted a dog yet, is just because I don't have the time. And that is in our contract, that we ask that if you can't take care of the dog, or you have to relinquish it for any number of reasons, that you bring it back to our shelter instead of a different one. Because if it is brought to a different shelter, we will go get the dog. It just saves us time and money and gas.
While the days are usually rewarding, there have been times when it often depends upon the dog's own condition, rather than the keeper's.
The intake days, when you get the dogs off the transport, they are very, very shy. Try to pull a lot of mange dogs as much as we can, because we know that not a lot of people like handling those animals. And we've had a whole range of severity of mange, and we've had dogs where if you touch them, they start bleeding. We've had animals that seem to be abused, so when you go to leash them up, they're cowering in the back, they're crying. That in and of itself is really tough, is seeing that the condition that the animal was in. Depending on the sickness, the animal might go into our isolation room, where only medical is handling those animals. If it is something severe, that dog will either take to a vet clinic or a 24-hour animal hospital, or if it's an illness, it will get isolated. But we do get the reward of helping that animal, and then watching it slowly come out of its shell if it was abused, and then watching it go into a home that is going to care for that animal.
Like a teacher closing out the school year and ready to welcome the newest students, Nick DeMaio takes his days one dog at a time, following his own philosophy, which is sure to become even more well practiced. Even with the dedication of so many determined men and women, the effort to keep captive animals well off has become a balancing act. The ideal keeper needs to be a custodian and friend to the animal, as well as a teacher to the world. But the number of successes can be measured, with captivity having brought back several species from extinction. It's these thoughts and more that preoccupy these people, these keepers.
That's why this place is so meaningful and so special for me, because it's an honor for me to be one of the voices for the big cats and to tell their story. And that's why we're so grateful and thankful for, you guys coming out today to let us tell you our story. So we're very, very thankful, for you guys coming out today. And there's been countless times I'm the last person leaving here at the end of the day. When I'm closing the gate behind me, I'll hear all the lions roaring out, calling out as if to say thank you. And having that kind of friendship with them, but also there's so many worthwhile organizations that need help, and it's a sense of accomplishment knowing that you're giving something back to the universe, which for me is extremely important, and it'd be great if everybody could do that.
It's a measure that's been taken up by these few intrepid people, and while they're few in number, that which they are, and it will be theirs to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield.